Have you ever been alone in your home and felt like something just wasn't right? That nagging feeling in the pit of your stomach, as if the walls themselves are watching you. The air grows heavier, the silence more oppressive, and then you hear it. A noise from somewhere you know you locked. A whisper from a room that's been empty for hours. You check again, but there's no one there, right? But then a cold chill crawls up your spine, because something tells you you're not alone, and you never were. In the next few minutes, we'll share 5 bone-chilling home alone experiences that will make you rethink every creak in the floor, every whisper in the dark, and every time you think you're alone. Are you sure you're really safe at home? Or is something already waiting for you in the shadows? The house is silent, too silent. The kind of silence that feels unnatural. The faint hum of the fridge is the only thing breaking the stillness, a soft whir that echoes in the empty space. It's the kind of hum that, on any other night, would feel comforting, almost soothing. But tonight, it sounds like an intruder, like a reminder of how eerily quiet the house has become. The walls seem to absorb every sound, making the quiet feel heavier, thicker. It presses down on you as you sit there, trying to ignore it, but it's impossible. The floorboards creak under every step you take. Not the gentle, familiar creak that comes from just any old house settling, but a loud, sharp creak. A sound that resonates through the empty halls like a warning. It's as though the house itself is trying to speak to you, telling you that something's not quite right. You pause, your foot hovering over the next step, but you can't stop yourself. You keep moving. You glance at the door, the locks on each one. You know you've checked them already, 3 times, maybe 4, but still, you can't shake the feeling that something's not quite right. The latch on the back door, the chain lock on the front, and the windows, everything was locked up tight. But the unease inside you grows, gnawing at the back of your mind. What if you missed something? What if you didn't check properly? Just to be sure, you get up again, and you check the locks for the 3rd time. But this time, it doesn't feel like just a routine. It feels like a ritual. You can smell the dust in the air, that musty, old house smell. It lingers in your nostrils as you inhale deeply, trying to calm yourself. The wood smells old, the kind of wood that has soaked in years of stories, secrets, and creaks. The faintest scent of mothballs clings to the air. It's the smell of a house that's been around for a while, and you're reminded of the generations before you who walked these very floors. The lighting is dim, almost deliberately so, as if the house is hiding something from you. The flickering bulb above the sink, the low hum of the lamps, all contribute to an atmosphere that seems more like a shadow than a home. The shadows are long, stretching across the walls like fingers creeping towards you. It's as though the house is alive, its very structure trying to conceal whatever it is that's lurking just beyond your sight. And that silence, it's the worst part. That stillness that hangs in the air, waiting to be disturbed. You hear it. The faintest noise, the scratch of something dragging across the floor, just outside your reach. Your eyes dart around, scanning the room, but there's nothing there. No source for the noise. Just the silence, growing thicker by the second. We've all been there. That feeling of unease when you're home alone. When you think you've locked the doors tight, turned the lights off, and secured every window, but something in the air tells you otherwise. That prickling sensation on the back of your neck. The hairs standing up, telling you that maybe, just maybe, there's something or someone else in the house with you. You've heard the noises. The scratching, the doors creaking, the faint tapping. It's all too familiar, but you can't explain it. The wind howls through the cracks of the window, adding to the eeriness, but even that doesn't feel like a natural wind. It's colder than usual, biting through the cracks, sending chills down your spine. The shadows flicker, shifting as the dim light plays tricks on your eyes. It's almost as if the house has a life of its own, and that life is watching you, listening. Imagine a young man named Alex, 22 years old. He's a college student, independent, and used to being on his own. After weeks of hectic classes and work, he finally has the house all to himself for a few days. It's the perfect opportunity to relax, to enjoy some peace and quiet. He's been looking forward to this moment. No roommates, no distractions. Just the calm of being in an empty house. The house, once full of life and noise, is now eerily quiet. The silence feels different, though. It's not the usual peaceful silence. It's more profound, almost suffocating. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what. At first, Alex tells himself it's just the quiet, that he's not used to being alone like this. But still, there's something about tonight, something off. He moves around the house, trying to shake off the growing feeling in his chest. But with every step, that unease grows stronger. He glances around, taking in the familiar surroundings, the couch where he usually relaxes, the kitchen counter where he spends late nights studying. All of it should feel comforting. But tonight, the shadows seem deeper, the rooms feel larger, more unfamiliar. It's as though the house has changed when he wasn't looking. He's alone, utterly alone. And yet, there's a strange heaviness in the air, like the house itself is holding its breath, waiting. Alex tries to ignore it, tries to focus on the TV or his phone, but each time he moves, he can't shake the feeling that the silence is watching him. It feels like the house has a presence, something unseen, something that's been waiting for him to be alone. It's just my imagination, he thinks. It's just the quiet. I'm fine. He says it over and over, but the words start to feel hollow, empty. Each time he tells himself he's okay, the feeling only grows stronger. It's the kind of feeling you can't ignore. A quiet gnawing at the back of your mind. Something's not right. But what? Alex decides to check the locks again, for the third time tonight. He's already checked them, 3 times, maybe 4, but something inside him insists he should double check. He makes his way to the front door, the back door, the windows. They're all secure. He stands there for just a moment, staring at the door, feeling as though there's something beyond it. He shakes his head, brushing the thought away, but the unease doesn't go away. He chuckles nervously, telling himself it's just the wind. But deep down, he knows it's not. The wind doesn't sound like that. It doesn't make the walls creak like that, doesn't make the air feel so cold. And then the tiniest noise, just a soft thud like something heavy shifting, or someone stepping into the room next door. Alex freezes, listening, his heart pounding in his chest. His mind races. Was it the wind? Or was it something else? The house is old, it makes noises, it settles. That's all. But this is different. He listens again, nothing. The air is still once more. The silence is back. But now it's not comforting. It's fine, Alex whispers to himself. I'm fine. It's nothing. But with every creak of the house, with every flicker of the light overhead, his confidence starts to crack. The silence is not his friend tonight. It's too thick, too heavy. Still, Alex moves through the house. He can't explain why, but he needs to check. He heads toward the kitchen, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness, his heart racing with every step. There's nothing out of place, nothing to explain the feeling that's settled over him like a fog. But the feeling is there, growing stronger. There's something in the house with him, something he can't see but can feel. At first, it's subtle, almost unnoticeable. Alex stands in the kitchen, trying to shake off the feeling, telling himself it's just the wind, just the house settling. But then something happens. A door slams shut downstairs. Hard. Not just a creak, but a full-on bang, like it was slammed by someone in a hurry. The air around him seems to freeze. He jumps, his heart thumping in his chest. The silence that follows is deafening, and for a moment, it feels like the house is holding its breath, waiting. Alex stands there, frozen. Was it the wind? No. The wind doesn't slam doors like that. He turns to look at the door, but there's nothing there. Just the quiet, suffocating air of the house. Then the lights flicker. It's quick, barely a second, but it's enough to make Alex's pulse spike. A flash, like a bulb struggling to stay on, and then darkness. The light buzzes faintly before returning to normal. Just a power surge, he thinks. That's all. But the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something feels wrong. His mind races. He tells himself to calm down, to stop overthinking. But as he moves down the hall, he hears something that stops him cold. Footsteps. Clear and deliberate, echoing down the hallway. Slow. Measured. Too slow. The kind of footsteps that make your blood run cold. His heart leaps into his throat. The house is supposed to be empty. No one else is supposed to be here. He turns, looking toward the source of the sound. But there's no one in the hall. Nothing. Just shadows stretching across the floor like dark fingers reaching out from the corners. Alex swallows hard, trying to steady his breath. He moves toward the kitchen, trying to distract himself from the growing fear clawing at his chest. As he steps into the room, the kitchen light flickers again. This time, it doesn't just flicker. It buzzes violently, almost as if it's going to short circuit. And then for just a moment, Alex sees it. A shadow, darting across the room, fast and fleeting, moving out of his line of sight before he can fully process it. His breath catches in his throat. Was it just his eyes playing tricks on him? He rushes to the window, pressing his face against the cold glass. The street outside is empty. No cars. No people. Just the quiet, darkened street stretching out into the night. Nothing unusual. Nothing that could explain what he saw. Could it have been the wind? Could it have been something else? Alex forces himself to breathe, trying to reason it out. But there's that feeling again. The feeling that something is in the house with him. Something that doesn't belong. The house is quiet once more, but it feels different. It feels like it's alive with waiting. Is it just a house settling? Or is something more sinister going on here? Something more terrifying than a house that creaks in the night. Something that waits in the darkness, just beyond the corner of your eye. With every creak, with every flicker, Alex feels that sense of dread tighten around his chest. He can't explain it. He tries to reason with himself, to convince himself that it's nothing. But every small, unsettling detail is adding up, building the tension like a slow-moving storm. It's coming, he can feel it. But what is it? And why does the house feel so much darker now? The house is no longer silent. The stillness that once dominated the space is shattered. The sounds are growing louder, more distinct, impossible to ignore. The footsteps, slow, deliberate, are now unmistakable. Too heavy to be the wind, too purposeful to be a coincidence. Something is moving through the house, just a few rooms away, and it's getting closer. A cold breeze sweeps through the hallway, and Alex feels it, like an icy hand brushing against his skin. A chill runs down his spine, prickling his nerves. His breath quickens as he glances around the empty house, but all he can hear is the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then it happens. A loud bang. The door slams shut behind him with such force, it shakes the walls. The sound is deafening. Alex's heart leaps in his chest, and for a split second, everything goes still. He's locked in. No way out. Panic floods through him, tightening his chest as his mind races. The door has just slammed shut, and now the silence is deafening again, but it feels wrong. Something is waiting. Something is here with him. Alex turns around, heart racing, expecting to see nothing more than the dark hallway stretching out before him. Maybe a lamp flickering or something harmless. But as his eyes lock onto the end of the hall, what he sees takes his breath away. At the far end of the hallway, standing perfectly still, is a shadow. A shape that's too distinct to ignore. Too tall, too defined. It's human, but not human. Not like anything Alex has ever seen before. Its form is there, but somehow it's wrong, its edges blurred, like it doesn't belong in this world. And it's staring right at him. Those eyes, empty black, fixed on him with an unblinking intensity that sends a jolt of terror through his body. His feet freeze to the floor, and for a moment he can't move. Can't breathe. The air is thick with the presence of this thing. It doesn't move. It doesn't speak. It just stands there, watching, waiting. Alex's mind is screaming at him to run, to do anything to escape, but his body refuses to obey. The shadow, whatever it is, stands still, its form dark and menacing, too real to be a figment of his imagination. Every muscle in his body is tense, frozen in place as he watches it, watching him. There's no escape. No one is coming. And the only thing Alex can do is wait and pray that this nightmare doesn't get any worse. Alex does the only thing his terrified mind can think of. He runs. His legs carry him through the hallways, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps as the footsteps behind him continue, echoing in the stillness. He reaches the front door, his hand shaking as he grabs the handle and yanks it open, just as he hears the unmistakable sound of something slamming shut behind him. The door, the one he had just left wide open, slams with a force so powerful, it rattles the entire house. And then, all at once, the footsteps stop. Alex spins around, his heart pounding in his chest, expecting to see someone, or something, standing right behind him. But the hallway is empty. The door is shut tight. The house is silent again. Too silent. What was it? Was it a ghost? Or something far worse? Something that had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for Alex to be alone. The next morning, Alex returns to the house. He expects to find something, anything, an explanation for the terror he'd experienced the night before. But when he walks inside, the house is exactly as it was. Everything in place. But there's one detail that no one can explain. The chair in the living room, the one he always sits in, was facing the door, and the door was wide open. Had he left it open? Had someone else been there? Or is there something else in that house, something Alex never fully understood? The question lingers, unanswered. And the door never really closed. Not completely. It was a quiet Friday night, nothing unusual. No parties, no phone calls. Just me alone in my house. The kind of peace I looked forward to after a long week. The house felt empty, but in the best way. No expectations, no demands. Just me, the dim glow of the kitchen light, the sound of the fridge hums, and the ticking of the clock on the wall. It was the kind of night where everything feels still, almost too still. You know the kind, where even the air feels different. It was cold, even though it wasn't, and I felt this heaviness in the air. I told myself it was just the weather, just the way the night was settling in, but deep down, something felt off. I was comfortable, or at least, I thought I was. The kind of comfort you get when no one else is around to disturb you, no one to bother you with demands. Just the house and its familiar creaks. The kind of house that becomes a part of you after a while. It was an old place, worn in the best possible way, cracked wood floors, the scent of dust in the air, the sound of old pipes groaning under the weight of time. I loved it, but there was a small part of me that always wondered, what else lived here? What if something else didn't want to leave? It started with a knock. At first, just a soft tap, but it was enough to pull me from my thoughts. I stood up, walked slowly to the door, peering through the peephole. There was no one there. Nothing but the empty porch. I stood there for a moment, feeling my heart beat a little faster. I shrugged it off. A neighbor? A lost delivery? It didn't make sense, but I was too tired to care. So I locked the door and went back to the kitchen, trying to shake off that uneasy feeling in my gut. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. That's what you do, right? You convince yourself it's just a fluke. But the nagging feeling stayed. It stayed like a shadow following me everywhere. I tried to get back into the rhythm of my evening, but then it happened again. The footsteps. Soft, deliberate, like someone walking across the floor upstairs. I froze. My first thought was that it was the house settling. Old houses have a way of creaking and groaning as they age. But it was different this time. It wasn't the house, it was something else. Something rhythmic, deliberate. And it wasn't just a sound, it was a presence. A feeling that something was there. And then it started to make sense. Those footsteps weren't coming from the house settling. No, they were coming from upstairs, but they didn't sound like they belonged to anyone I knew. I thought maybe I was just hearing things, maybe it was the wind. But something felt off, something I couldn't explain. I stood there, listening to the silence. But the silence wasn't the kind I was used to. It was thick, uncomfortable. Every shadow seemed darker, and every sound sharper. I started checking the house, one room at a time. The kitchen, the living room. No one. The windows were locked, the doors secure. Still, the feeling remained, like something was just out of sight, watching me. I decided to let it go, chalk it up to my imagination. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then came the moment that I'll never forget. The footsteps weren't just a noise in the background. They weren't the house. They were real. They were coming closer. I remember standing at the bottom of the stairs, my flashlight trembling in my hand, when I heard them. The footsteps. But this time, they weren't just upstairs. They were behind me. I turned, but there was nothing. I checked again, no one. The house was empty, the way it was supposed to be. I called out, my voice weak in the silence. No answer. My heart raced in my chest. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, suffocating. It was then I realized something or someone was here with me. I stood frozen, listening. And then it came. The shadow. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. But no, it was moving. I could see it in the corner of my eye, standing still, not making a sound. I walked toward it, every instinct telling me to turn back. But I couldn't. I needed to know what it was. I rounded the corner, shining my light toward the darkness, but there was nothing. Nothing at all. Yet I could feel it. Something was there. And it wasn't leaving. The police came. They searched the house, checked every room, every window. Nothing. No signs of a break-in. No evidence that anyone had been in the house. I tried to tell them what I heard, what I felt, but they chalked it up to nerves, to being alone too long. They left, and I was left with nothing but the silence. But that silence was different. It wasn't comforting. It was cold. And no matter how many times I tried to explain what happened, I couldn't shake that feeling. I still live in that house, but it's never been the same. Every time I walk through the hallways, I still hear those footsteps. I still see that shadow, and I still wonder, what was it that followed me that night? It was 2 a.m. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as if it wanted to tear them from their frames. The old house creaked under the weight of the storm, every gust of wind pushing it closer to breaking. The dim lights in the hallway flickered like they were struggling to stay on, their weak pulse barely enough to illuminate the darkened corners of the room. It felt as though the house itself was holding its breath, every shadow stretching, waiting. Alone in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I thought it was just the storm. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but then I heard it. A soft creak from the hallway, the sound of a door shifting, barely audible. My heart skipped a beat. Then came the footsteps. They weren't mine. I froze, listening intently. My own breathing seemed too loud in the silence that followed, almost drowning out the soft rhythm of the steps coming closer. I stood perfectly still, but the footsteps didn't stop. They were coming toward me. I couldn't see anything in the dark, but I felt it, felt the space in the room grow colder. The house seemed to close in around me, the air thick and heavy. The faintest of shadows moved across the wall, but when I turned my head to look, nothing was there. Just the faint sound of something breathing, faint, yet so close. Too close. The footsteps continued, as though whatever was out there was pacing, waiting, watching. I couldn't make sense of it. I was alone. But that feeling, it lingered. Something or someone was in the house with me, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could ignore it. What would you do if you were me? Would you leave? Would you check the house? Or would you stay where you are, hoping that whatever was waiting, would just disappear? I was just like you, someone who thought nothing could ever happen to them. I was safe at home, just trying to relax after a long day. You know the kind of day I'm talking about. Work, stress, errands, all the usual stuff. The kind where you just want to kick back and forget about everything. So when the house was quiet, I was happy for the peace. It was my time. I had no reason to think anything was off. I poured myself a drink, settled in, and started watching a show. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect even. The kind of perfect that feels a little too still, almost like the world outside had stopped just for me. But what happened that night changed everything I thought I knew about safety. I was just like you. You know, someone who thought nothing could ever happen to them. We all feel safe at home, right? After a long day of work, school, or whatever life throws at us, our homes are supposed to be our sanctuary, a place where we can finally unwind, let the stress of the day slip away, and just be alone with our thoughts. It's funny how we often take that peace for granted, don't we? The idea that nothing could ever go wrong in the place we spend most of our time. That's exactly how I felt, too. Everything was normal, just another quiet evening. I was home alone, relaxed, a glass of water in hand, sprawled out on the couch. I flipped on the TV, trying to drown out the thoughts of the day with some mindless entertainment. I was in my own bubble of comfort, thinking that nothing could ever disturb it. I mean, who would think something sinister could happen on an average night, in an average home, right? But what happened next? Well, it shattered that illusion, made me realize how quickly a sense of safety can vanish when you least expect it. I tried to shake off the feeling that was creeping in. You know the one. The feeling that maybe I wasn't as safe as I thought. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more I realized something wasn't right. I don't know how to explain it, but the silence in the house wasn't the usual stillness I was used to. It was heavier. The walls felt like they were closing in, the air thick, as if it had been holding its breath right alongside me. Every little sound seemed amplified in the silence, the creak of the floorboards, the wind howling outside. I told myself it was just the storm. The wind was strong tonight, shaking the house in ways it never had before. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. So, I went to check the house. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I should just relax and enjoy my evening, but when I walked through the hallways, I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The house was too still, as though something was watching me, waiting for the moment I would make a move. Then I heard it again. A soft, faint knock. At first, I thought it was just the storm rattling the windows. But no, the knock sounded closer this time. Almost like someone was at the door, but I was alone. My heart started pounding in my chest. I walked to the door. I checked the locks. Everything was as it should be. But when I turned around, I heard it again. A faint knock, coming from the other side of the house. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. The storm had made the house creak. Maybe the old wood was settling. But the more I listened, the more it didn't make sense. The knocking, it turned to scratching, like nails dragging across the walls, slow and deliberate. I could hear it, but I couldn't see it. My breath caught in my throat, and then the breathing. I froze, my blood running cold. It wasn't me. It wasn't the storm. I could hear someone or something breathing right behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing there. I stared into the dark corner of the room, my pulse racing, the hairs on my arms standing on end. For a moment, I convinced myself it was just the wind. It had to be. Maybe I was imagining things. But the breathing didn't stop. It grew heavier, more deliberate, closer. It felt like whatever was there was watching me. I turned to face the room, scanning every shadow, every corner, but there was nothing. Just the empty room staring back at me. The silence, once oppressive, was now deafening. And then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shadow. But when I looked directly at it, it was gone. My stomach sank. Something was in the house. And it was getting closer. The next morning, everything seemed fine. Too fine. I woke up with a sense of dread that I couldn't shake, but I told myself it was just a bad dream. The storm had passed. The house was still. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, that I had imagined it all in the dark. But then I walked into the living room, and there it was. The chair in the corner, the one I always leave facing the wall, was turned around. Not just turned around, but facing the door I had locked tight the night before. My stomach turned. I hadn't touched that chair. I hadn't moved it. That night, I wasn't alone after all. The night was like any other. Or at least, that's what I thought at first. The house was quiet, as it always was when I was alone. I had gotten used to the solitude, to the peacefulness that comes when the house is still and the world outside is muffled by the walls. But tonight was different. It wasn't just the usual silence. No, it was a deeper kind of quiet, a stillness that seemed to seep into the air itself, pressing down on me, filling the space with something that felt wrong. As I sat there, the only sound in the room was the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen, its cold breath slicing through the thick air, as though it were trying to break the silence. I remember the way the shadows in the room seemed to move, shifting just slightly with every flicker of the streetlights outside. There were no sounds of wind or rain, nothing to explain the strange chill that crept under my skin. And yet, every creak of the old house, the way the floorboards groaned and the walls sighed under the weight of time, seemed to carry with it an unnerving sense of expectation, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. Waiting for me. There was something different about tonight. Something I couldn't place. The stillness was suffocating, as if every room, every corner of the house was quietly listening, watching. But I was alone. Wasn't I? I was just like you. Just another person, another face in the crowd, trying to get through the day, trying to find peace in the comfort of my own home. I'd stayed home alone countless times before. Hell, I always relished those moments. There's something soothing about the quiet when it's your own, when you don't have to listen to anyone else's thoughts or noises or demands. You can just be. You can let the world fall away, let the house wrap itself around you, like a blanket keeping the chaos of life at bay. But tonight, there was something in the air. It wasn't that the house felt different, Peresi. No, it was something subtler. Something that crept into the corners of my mind. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just the dark, just the silence, just my mind playing tricks. But the longer I sat there, the heavier the air became. The more it felt like the house was alive, like it had its own heartbeat, its own secrets it was keeping. I tried to ignore it, to dismiss the creeping unease in my gut, but it wouldn't let go. There had been nights before when the house had seemed too quiet, too still, but tonight was different. This time, it felt as if something was waiting, watching. I couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't just me. It was the house. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I was alone anymore. I tried to distract myself, to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. I went into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, hoping the warmth would calm me down. But even as I moved, I couldn't ignore the strange sensations hanging in the air, like the house itself was paying too much attention to my every step. And then I heard it, a faint tap, distant and quiet, like the tapping of a finger on glass. I paused, holding my breath, straining to listen. Was it just the pipes again? Maybe the house settling like it always did? I told myself it was nothing. I went back to the task at hand, trying to dismiss the sound. But then it came again, louder this time. Closer. Tap, 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 like a soft knock at the door. But I wasn't expecting anyone. The sound came from the hallway this time. The kitchen was still behind me, but the tap came closer. Tap, 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 and I could feel my heartbeat quicken, as if the noise was sinking with it, pushing my nerves to the edge. I turned around, heart pounding, but the hallway was empty. I walked cautiously to the door, checking every corner, but there was no one there. The silence returned, but it wasn't the same. The house felt even quieter now, like everything was holding its breath, waiting for the next tap. But it didn't come. Not then. Not yet. I had to check. I couldn't leave it alone. I had to know what was making the noise. I stood there, frozen for a moment, listening intently. There it was again, the tap. But this time, it was followed by something else. A low breath, like a sigh. A soft, shuddering sound right behind me. My heart jumped into my throat, and I turned around, feeling the cold rush of panic flood my body. But there was nothing. No one. I moved quickly, my breath shallow, and checked every corner of the kitchen and hallway, but nothing. It was then that I realized nothing made sense. No one had been there. The breath, it wasn't my own. And it was so close. Too close. I froze. For the first time that night, I was sure there was someone here with me. The morning came, and everything seemed normal. The house was quiet, just as it should be. But as I got ready to leave, something caught my eye in the hallway mirror. At first, I thought it was nothing, just the light playing tricks. But as I stepped closer, I saw it, fingerprints. Small, smudged marks, like someone had pressed their face against the glass. But there had been no one there. Not that night. Not ever. I didn't know what to think. Was it my mind playing tricks on me? Or was there someone, something, still here? I thought it was over. I thought maybe it was just my imagination, the shadows, the silence, playing games with my mind. But now, I'm not so sure. The house feels empty, but I can't shake the feeling that someone or something is still here watching me. It was one of those cold, bitter nights when the air feels like it's trying to seep into your bones. The wind was howling through the trees outside, its mournful cry reverberating through the house. The kind of storm that rattles windows, shakes doors, and makes you question the integrity of the roof over your head. The house itself, an old one with creaky floors and groaning walls, felt alive in a way. Every little noise seemed amplified in the silence. The flicker of a dying light bulb in the hallway, the soft thud of a door closing somewhere in the distance. It was all so unnerving. I was alone, completely alone, except for the steady ticking of the old clock on the wall. But even that sound, which normally brought me comfort, now seemed like a reminder of just how empty the house really was. I tried to tell myself it was just the storm, but deep inside, something didn't feel right. The very air felt thick, like the house was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And that's when I started to hear it. A soft rustling sound, barely noticeable, coming from somewhere upstairs. Now, I'm not one of those people who gets scared easily. I've lived in that house for years, alone most of the time, and I've always felt perfectly safe. Nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. I'd heard the rumors, of course, the tales that get passed around, stories about the house's past, but I dismissed them. Who believes in ghosts, right? But I was just like you, someone who thought nothing could happen in the comfort of their own home. I figured I had control over my space, over my life. Little did I know, that night would change everything. The wind howled outside, but inside, there was an eerie silence that felt almost deafening. I was curled up on the couch, watching a movie to drown out the storm, but even the screen couldn't keep my mind from wandering. I thought I heard something, but I brushed it off. After all, it was just me, or so I thought. It started small. Little things, nothing that should have raised any alarms. A flicker of light, almost too quick to notice. I thought it was just the bulb playing up, nothing to worry about. But then the door, the one to the hallway, creaked. I wasn't sure if I had locked it or not earlier, but it was barely open now, just wide enough for the darkness beyond to feel closer. My heart skipped, and I stood up to close it, but before I could, I heard it again. A soft, almost imperceptible sound. A light footstep, maybe? It couldn't be, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up anyway. I checked the house. Locked everything. No one was supposed to be here. But the feeling? That feeling didn't go away. It settled in like a cold weight pressing on my chest, making each breath harder. The door was fine, the windows locked, but something wasn't right. And as I stood in that hallway, listening to the sound of the storm outside, I heard it again. A whisper, not from the wind, but from somewhere inside the house. My heart raced, my mind spun, but I couldn't make sense of it. And then it happened. A loud bang. A crash, really, coming from upstairs. It was so sudden, so jarring, that it made my blood run cold. My pulse shot through the roof. I froze, not sure if I was hearing things, or if maybe I had imagined it. But no, there it was again, louder this time. Footsteps, distinct, heavy, moving quickly across the floor above me. No one was upstairs. No one had been in the house with me. I knew this. But the sound, it was real. So real, in fact, that my legs refused to move. My breath hitched in my throat as the realization set in. I wasn't alone anymore. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to laugh it off and call it a trick of the storm, maybe the house settling, something, anything that could make sense of what was happening. But then I saw it. A shadow, dark and thin, moving across the wall. No breeze. No open window. Just a shadow, stretching across the room as if it were alive. I didn't blink. I couldn't. I stared at it, and I realized something chilling. It wasn't just the house that was alive. It was something else, something that was here with me. And it wasn't leaving. I ran toward the door, desperate to escape. But it wouldn't open. I yanked on the handle, but the door was stuck, frozen in place as if something was holding it from the other side. My panic rose with every second, my heart pounding in my ears as I pulled harder, my knuckles white. I turned, trying to find another way out. My phone. Dead. No service. I was trapped. And then I heard it. The soft, steady sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming closer and closer from behind me. My throat tightened. Whatever it wasn't just in the house. It was hunting me. The door slammed behind me, a sound so loud it nearly shook the house. I spun around, heart racing, to find the room suddenly much colder, the air heavier. I felt a breath, cold and sharp, on my neck. I froze, barely daring to turn. The steps grew louder, closer, and I felt its presence, its eyes upon me. I had no more time. Whatever it was right there in the room with me. And then, I heard the whisper again, this time clearer than ever. You can't run. I bolted out of the house, every ounce of fear pushing me faster, harder. I ran and ran until I thought my legs might give out. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. But when I reached the end of the driveway and turned to look at the house, I saw something that made my blood freeze once more. The front door creaked open on its own, and there, standing at the window, was nothing. But the dark shape that had been lurking was gone, and the house was silent again. But I knew deep down that it wasn't over. I never returned to that house. I couldn't. Not after what happened. But every night, when I lie in bed, I still hear those footsteps. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear that whisper in the darkness, telling me that whatever was there is still waiting. Waiting for me to come back. And I can't help but wonder, was it all just in my mind? Or is it still out there, somewhere, watching? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Ever had a terrifying experience alone? Maybe something you couldn't explain? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments too. I'd love to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stay safe out there, but always stay alert.